Kia ora koutou. Today we're going to have a look at the Passover and what it's all about. So I wanted to start off in the New Testament first, and where we see Passover in the New Testament. The most significant mention of Passover in the New Testament is when Jesus went up to Jerusalem for the last time. He celebrated Passover with the disciples in what we call the upper room. And this was the moment where the Last Supper or First Communion was actually celebrated, commemorated. And Jesus did that with his disciples just before he was crucified. So, why was Jesus actually celebrating Passover? Now, the Passover is a very significant holiday for Jewish people, and it commemorates the Israelites being liberated from Egypt and from slavery in Egypt. This liberation happened in the Old Testament and is outlined in Exodus 12. But really, to summarize what's happening about this time, the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. Moses was their leader, and Moses, under God's direction, had been approaching Pharaoh, the leader of Egypt, and requesting, demanding that he let the Israelites go. And every time Pharaoh said no, God would send a plague on the land. The last plague that God sent was actually him in spirit form striking down every firstborn in a household, both human and animal. However, if the blood of a 1-year-old male lamb without defect was painted on the sides and top of the doorframe of a house, the spirit would pass over that household without killing the firstborns. Now, in the majority of cases, it was only the Israelites that knew about this need to have painted the blood of the lamb across the tops of the door frames and the sides. This meant that when the Spirit of God moved across Egypt, he killed Egyptian firstborns. And so that meant that the Pharaoh's firstborn was also killed. And at this point, Pharaoh agreed to let the Israelites go. So this is how God liberated the Israelites from Egypt. From that time in the Old Testament forward, Jews have celebrated Passover as a way to remember what God did. Now, because Jesus was Jewish, he was obviously celebrating Passover with his disciples in Jerusalem. There are many ceremonial aspects to Passover, such as the removal of leavened products from a household before Passover is actually celebrated. And in some ways, Passover is a celebration of freedom and deliverance for the Israelites. And it also has a component, a really serious component of reflection and observation of tradition. According to the Hebrew calendar, Passover falls within March or April. And this is actually why, as Christians in the Western world, we celebrate Easter at this time as well. Because, as I mentioned previously, Jesus celebrated Passover with his disciples just before he was crucified on the cross. So I've been very fortunate to celebrate Passover a couple of times with community churches that I've been involved in. And I have always thought that the reflection and learning that I gained from doing that has been immense and well worth the effort that goes into commemorating or celebrating Passover. So therefore, I do encourage you, if you do have the opportunity ever to be involved in a Passover meal or service or celebration, don't turn down that opportunity. It's an amazing experience to have as part of your Christian journey. So that's what Passover is. And I hope you feel inspired to take part in a Passover celebration in the future. Ka kite.